The history of Elite Dangerous doesn't matter. And you know what? I feel we actually need to talk about that. What's led to this discussion? Well, it all began with a roundtable livestream I did with the fellow content creators Yamiks and Exigeous. It was actually a really good discussion, and you can see the full video on demand linked in the video description if you want to check that out. Now, as good as it was, a few threads of discussion were left hanging, and I want to address those right here. Specifically, one thought comes to mind in regards to Frontier's approach to development recently. Maybe Frontier are thinking, if you love it, let it go. Either way, I'm sure you're wondering how on earth we get from a creators roundtable to the concept that Elite's development history no longer matters. Well, to answer that, let's take a look at a few of the top comments from the recent video. This one right here at the top, I consider you three the old guard, and it's a little heartbreaking to see how few Elite creators are left. I love the roundtables of yesteryear and wish the game was still alive and well for consoles. And then this comment a little further down. This was really good listening, Ant and crew, thank you. I don't hate Elite, I'm just really sad about so many lost opportunities and how the reality of what is in the game so many years after launch is so unlike what I hoped it would be. One more comment to mention, a great game's development should exceed its grasp. Elite isn't reaching anymore, it's grasping common stuff around the house and calling it development. So this is a general theme throughout the rest of the comments there on that video. It was also brought up very frequently on the chat during the live stream. To be very clear on this, these comments are not hating on Elite, and I don't consider them to be negative in any way whatsoever. That said, there is a common theme that runs throughout each of them, and that is a reflection upon what Elite once was, what it could have been, and what it's become. Now, before we can discuss what it's become, I want to take a look back at what it was, or to put that another way, a perhaps better way, what some people believed it to be. So that doesn't require me recounting the entirety of Elite Dangerous's development history. There are other videos on that, in fact I'll link one on the screen right here. You can check that out if that's what you need to know. Essentially though, what it comes down to is that Elite is a live service game. The game also has a very vibrant community, both today as well as in the years in the past. Now, any community that builds up around a game has a perception of that game, and that perception in turn is directly influenced by the game's development. Now, I've been with Elite Dangerous since 2012, its first days on the Kickstarter, and really you can break the game's perception, the game's development cycle down into pretty much three different categories, three different time periods. There was a time period between 2012 and around 2017, maybe early 2018, where the attention of pretty much the community as well as the developers was firmly focused on the future. And this makes sense, right? After all, there was much to look forward to as a brand new game, and the future was full of possibilities, expansions, updates, and much more. And then, in June of 2018, there was a massive shift, and this marked the start of the second time period. Elite Dangerous Odyssey went into full production, and it meant that development on Elite Dangerous itself, the live version of the game, went very quiet for around about 3 years. This of course had an impact on certain areas of the game's community. Now, obviously can't speak for the entire community, but there was certainly a pickup at this point in the perception that Elite Dangerous' development was slowing down. For much of the old community there, what the comment referred to as the old guard was still present. As an example of this, one of the greatest community-led events ever in Elite Dangerous happened in 2019, and that was Distant Worlds 2. Overall though, this second phase of Elite Dangerous' timeline, well, it was very quiet. There wasn't much in the way of development from Frontier. In fact, they stopped all community goals and even stopped Galnet. Yet towards the end of this second time period, things began to really pick up. In my opinion, this second phase ended with the announcement of Elite Dangerous Odyssey in 2020. Odyssey launched in May of 2021. This marked the beginning of the third time period for Elite Dangerous, and we'll know the story of that. Some people are happy about it, others not so much, and of course this is what we discussed in the Content Creators Roundtable with Yamiks, Exigeous and myself. And this really is where the story for Elite Dangerous begins to change. In my opinion, my take on things is, and it comes down to two different things. The first is poor development and mismanagement by Frontier themselves on Odyssey, and the second is player expectations. These two issues then are really the crux of the issue that I opened the video on. I think whether you like Odyssey, whether you love it, whether you hate it, whether you're indifferent to it or just play it occasionally, regardless of your feelings towards the game, I think there's one common thread that most people at least could probably agree on, and that is if we go back to 2012 and the launch of the game in 2014, Odyssey is really not what players would have expected Elite to become. Now that isn't a criticism of Odyssey, and it's certainly not a criticism of the community. It's just an observation that what ultimately arrived is perhaps not what many people hoped for or what many people expected. Right, okay, I think that's a reasonable statement. I don't think that's too negative. I think a lot of people out there will probably agree with it. But why Obsidian? Why are you yet again recounting the problems with Odyssey and Elite Dangerous' development history? Well, that comes down to two reasons. This video is a follow-up video to the 1-year Odyssey retrospective, so I'm addressing a few points that I thought of then that I'd really like to give further analysis and further thought on. There's a second reason though, and it comes back to the statement I opened the video on. Elite Dangerous' development history no longer matters. But what does that even mean? Well, here we are in what I believe is the third time period for the game, and this is very much the time period of Odyssey. Of course, you can still play Horizons, all the old Elite content is still right there, but it's no longer being updated. The focus for development is very much on Odyssey, and as I established earlier, development generally influences perception of the community. Now, please bear with me here because I want to return back to the couple of comments I opened the video on. Hopefully you'll see a connection here now. I consider you three the old guard, and it's a little heartbreaking to see how few Elite creators are left. I love the roundtables of yesteryear and wish the game was still alive and well for consoles. This was really good listening, Anton Crew, thank you. I don't hate Elite, I'm just really sad about so many lost opportunities and how the reality of what is in the game so many years after launch is so unlike what I'd hoped it would be. Okay, so please understand that I'm not picking on these two comments. I actually think these are really good comments. They're also extremely reflective of many of the opinions I see out there. In short, for some people, for many people perhaps, the third phase, the third age of Elite Dangerous is incompatible with the first age. Or to put that a better way, for the veterans out there, for the players who have been here since 2012, 2014, 2016, or at some point back then, the expectations, hopes and dreams of what Elite Dangerous would be do not match what Odyssey is. Of course, that is a pretty broad statement, it's very generalised, and some people will no doubt accuse it of being hyperbole. However, it is extremely reflective of many of the comments out there and many of the opinions. Okay, so here's my personal take on that. What these people feel, the people who express these opinions, it matters. It matters a lot. Different people express this opinion in different ways. Some people express it with frustration, others with disappointment, others still express it with anger, and some people of course are just indifferent. Now, all of this leads us to a very specific place. What is that place? Well, it turns out that there's loads and loads of people out there, perhaps measured in the tens of thousands, that are very happy with Odyssey as it currently stands. They're happy with Frontier's development, they're happy with the community interaction from Frontier, and just generally really enjoying the whole process. These people are not wrong, they're entirely within their rights, they're entirely correct to feel this way. They are enjoying the Odyssey ride and going along with everything that entails. That will mean the current Odyssey gameplay, the current Elite Dangerous gameplay of course, the space-based stuff. It will also mean the Azimuth story and everything else that's going along with that, including community goals. Now, here's the thing. There's absolutely no way for us to tell the percentage of this part of the player base. It may comprise 95% of the players, it may be 80%, perhaps it's 50%, or perhaps it's just 20% of the player base. There's no way for us to tell. What we do know, however, is that Frontier are absolutely committed to continuing on with their current path. And this means further development of the Azimuth saga, continued community goals, and eventually in November, a reveal of the narrative story, something that hopefully will dramatically impact the game world of Elite. Here then is the real hard truth. Where Elite Dangerous is heading, the roadmap that Frontier revealed to us for 2022 and 2023, this has no bearing at all on what Elite once was in its first age and in its second age. It is, however, a very strong foundation for what Elite is today in its third age. And this is why the development history of Elite Dangerous no longer matters. Frontier's focus is rightly firmly on the future, but unfortunately the problems of the past 12 months have caused a rift for a significant portion of what some feel to be the old guard, or those veteran players, those who were here for the first age and the second age of the game's development. Of course, that won't include all people from those time periods. There's still plenty of people around from back then who are loving Elite today and loving Odyssey, and quite rightly so. No judgment there at all on either side. So, what is the problem? What is the issue here? What is it I'm trying to say? Well, it's a very specific and pretty much unspoken message from Frontier. Elite Dangerous's development history no longer matters. The direction Odyssey is going in is the direction that Frontier are going to maintain. It's working for a lot of people. Many people out there are happy with it. You only have to look out there and see what the number of people that seem to be enjoying Odyssey content. However, as I've mentioned in this video, there are a significant number of people who feel otherwise, and we've seen a few comments for them in this specific video. It's right here then that there's a rift within the Elite Dangerous community, a very specific divide. And on the other side of this rift, there are plenty of people who feel very strongly that the development history of Elite Dangerous very much does matter and is extremely important. Unfortunately, this is one of those divides that cannot be fixed by players. It's not something that can be fixed by the community. It's not even something that can be fixed by content creators. It doesn't matter how positive you are in your videos or how negative you are in your videos. This is not something you can fix. It's a problem caused over the past 12 months. It's caused by Frontier, and it needs to be fixed by Frontier. Now, in their recent developers roadmap, they've gone a long way towards fixing this particular problem, by letting us know really where things are heading and where things stand. They've also done a lot to fix things with their recent developer live streams. These are really good, a big improvement over where things were before. Unfortunately, I don't have any suggestions for Frontier on how to fix this. I'm not a community specialist. For me, I observe and see what's going on and just comment on what I see and what I feel. Some of you will no doubt agree with me, others will certainly disagree. It's not a matter of being negative or toxic or positive or otherwise. It's just calling it what it is. Now, there is another possibility here for the future of the game, and this one seems to be the most likely one. Slowly, over time, those who are not happy with the way Elite Dangerous currently stands will gradually fade away. You'll see less negativity and less what some people feel to be toxicity, and more just general happiness about Elite Dangerous as a whole. Time perhaps then heals everything, and perhaps that is Frontier's hope. They could also be feeling, if you love it, let it go. If so, that would be very reflective of their approach to development over the past few years. Do let me know in the comment section below what you feel of all of this. Does the development history of Elite Dangerous matter in this day and age? Or is it something that no longer matters? I'd love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments section below. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.